If you've ever come home from a trip and felt like your photos were technically fine but somewhat forgettable, this video is for you. I think most travel photography YouTube videos focus around gears, settings, and locations. What I want to do is give you a little bit of a different perspective, and I want to try and get you to a point where your photographs feel like you did when you were out there taking them. Over time, I've realized my best travel photos come from slowing down, paying attention, and being more intentional. Not about the specific location I'm in or the number of photos I've taken. So in this video, I'm going to focus less on technique and more on pacing, awareness, and storytelling, because these are the things that have helped improve my travel photography over the years. I've got 10 tips for you. Don't forget to stick around until the end. I really appreciate your engagement. Let's get into it. So tip number one is make sure that you let light and subject matter dictate your shooting schedule. Now, I know that it's not possible for all of us to go on dedicated photography trips. And often, if you're like me, you're trying to build photography in around a family vacation. What I think is really important to do here is when you're in a location, is to put the camera down and spend some time just observing. And then if you have the ability to, and a supportive family, try and carve out some specific time to come back and shoot a location when you think the light is best. And I also think it's really, really important to not confine yourselves to golden hour, which we often think is the best time to shoot most locations. Depending on what you're trying to convey during your shoot and with the collection of images you're creating, maybe harsh midday sun is perfect time to go out and shoot. So think about the story you're trying to tell and the feeling you're trying to project with your images or with a set of images, and then tailor your shooting around that where possible. Tip number two is to shoot like a local, not a visitor. And what do I mean by that? Well, I think the natural inclination, especially when you're in a new place, is to chase some of those glory shots and the bangers that you might see on Instagram so that you can try and copy them for yourself. One of the first things I do when I'm wandering around a new or unfamiliar location when I'm traveling is I focus my attention on those things that create parts of daily life. The bus stops, the markets, and the street corners, and the cafes. And then I ask myself, am I surrounded by other tourists? And if the predominant language I hear is not English, I know I'm in a good place to try and capture the essence of somewhere the way I'm feeling it. Because those places like bus stops and markets, they are part of the local's daily life. Those places create rhythm, routine, and from that you can capture a feeling that you had while you were there. So tip number three is to commit to one lens or focal length for an entire day. And you could do this for multiple days during the trip, or you could mix it up. And I think what this does is it eliminates choice. And when you're traveling, you've already got a lot of things going on. So eliminating some choice in your photography will also reduce friction. And you'll be forced to make decisions that then end up creating a more cohesive body of work. You can then go back and fill in gaps with different focal lengths. If you carry a zoom, you can just make a decision to set your zoom on a certain focal length for the entire day. With primes, you could maybe just take out the 50 or the 90 or the 35 for a day. But I really think that this is a good way to create some focus and reduce some friction in your work. And then what happens is you create a cohesive narrative by having a lot of images look the same. So tip number four is to capture the transitions, not just the moments. And what do I mean by that? Well, if you're hanging out at a place like a local bus stop and you start to see potential images forming in front of you, you might want to capture the obvious ones, but stand around for a little bit longer and try to capture some of the details. Maybe how light falls across a person's face, or how their hands are crossed on their legs while they're sitting there waiting. These types of things really do add up to build a better narrative and more cohesive body of work while you're out photographing, and they tend to tell a deeper story of the place you're in. And quite frankly, if I'm honest with myself, this is an area of work that I need to work on. I constantly have to remind myself not to shoot as wide, and sometimes I think I need to add a little bit more detail to my travel photography to make it a little bit more cohesive and to tell a slightly deeper story. So I'd encourage you to try and do the same here. So tip 5 is about making a couple of small decisions before you're actually picking up the camera and pressing the shutter. And while I'm not a huge advocate of over-planning trips, I think it is necessary to do a little bit of pre-thinking once you're out in the field about how you want your photographs to feel. And so what do I mean by this? I think it's really important to observe a place and then think about how you feel. Are you feeling lonely, calm, agitated? Is it hot, quiet? Is it cold? Because all these decisions can really impact what your focus of your photography is on. I like to pick one feeling and then try and center some of my photography around that for a couple of hours. And this way, again, you start to build some cohesion in the images that you're taking out there during the day. You can also do this by thinking about color palettes, making sure that you're aware of the colors you're shooting, so that in a series of images or a body of work that you've created, you've got that those natural transitions between the images. So a little bit of thought here goes a long way. It's not something you have to do way ahead of time, because you're going to need to make observations while you're out in the field. But when you're out there doing it, I do think it's really important to try and incorporate some of this into your work. So my 6th tip in this series is to stay in a place longer than you naturally feel comfortable. And I think anybody who has spent time doing any street photography knows that often when you're standing around on a corner trying to watch things develop in front of you, the longer you stay there, the more attuned you are to your surroundings, and the less people around you notice that you're there with a camera, and so they become more relaxed. I found the same thing applies to street photography. I know, again, not everybody has the time to stand around for 45 minutes to an hour in one particular location, especially if you're traveling with family. But if you've carved out some specific times at some specific locations by doing a little bit of pre-research and planning, I think it plays a lot of dividends if you can stay in one location and observe what's going on around you. Because that's when the magic starts to happen, because you're more relaxed, and then the subjects around you are also more relaxed as well. So I think this goes a long way to creating some really great opportunities to capture some wonderful images when you're out traveling. So tip number 7 is to make sure that you don't tie yourself into quote unquote shooting in perfect conditions. Use weather to your advantage. And what do I mean by that? Well, I think when we talk about popular travel locations, everyone's seen the perfect sunsets or the perfect early morning or late hour golden hour light that some of these locations look stunning in. But what necessarily doesn't happen is you telling a slightly different story and presenting a location in a way that we don't often see it, so in bad weather. And I often think about harsh midday light. This is a time of day that most people don't want to shoot in, but I think actually can yield some fantastic images, especially if you use that to your advantage when you're shooting in locations that you want to demonstrate how bright and light and harsh a certain place can be. So when I think of that, I think about the Southwest Desert or certain places in Europe or Africa where harsh light really does emphasize the feeling that you have when you're in a particular location like that. On the flip side, don't be afraid of rain or snow or of adverse conditions, because I think they can really add a lot of depth and mood to images. And again, this is going to show a place to a lot of people who have seen it before in a completely different way. And that's what's engaging about photography in this manner, because you're going to show somewhere in a slightly different light. Okay guys, before we get on to the next tip, I just want to take a quick moment to introduce myself. For those of you new here, my name's Tom. I'm a photographer who's based out of New Jersey, And this channel is centered around photography, mental well-being, and mental health, and how those three things intertwine with each other, and how I've used photography to help improve my mental well-being, mindfulness, and mental health. So stick around to the end, because there's going to be a couple more tips that I think you're going to find really useful. Don't forget to like and subscribe, because it does help the channel more than you can realize. So thank you so much, and I hope you enjoy the rest of these tips. So tip number 8 is to spend a little time focusing on the details. And I alluded to this when I was talking earlier about making sure that you immerse yourself in local gathering places like bus stops or markets. And I think that by doing this, you can really add some depth to the work that you've created, and it helps tells a deeper story about a location that you travel to. So things like hands, door handles, reflections, some of the more abstract things that you can add to a portfolio of images that you've taken when you come away from a place, they just tell a little bit more story about a place. And what they often do is add a little bit of human connection, and they humanize a location. And this really helps resonate with a lot of people when they're looking at your work. So focus on the details. Be careful, use it sparingly. You don't want too much, but sprinkling that into a series of travel images can really help define and improve the story that you're telling. So tip 9 might sound a little bit counterintuitive, and this is where I tell you to actually spend some time not using your camera. And why do I tell you to do this? Well, first of all, if you're on a family vacation, family comes first, right? Secondly, time without a camera actually helps you become more observant. You tend to notice things more because you're thinking with a photographer's eye, but you're not constantly thinking about capturing the next image or the potential that you might have missed something. So simply sitting down and having a cup of coffee and watching the world pass around you can reveal some really great opportunities that you could return to later. I think spending some time without the camera and observing your surroundings is a really impactful way to improve your travel photography, because it gives you a little bit more time to understand the place that you're shooting without the pressure of having to try and capture a picture. So tip number 10 is around distancing yourself from your images and not jumping straight into the editing process, especially while you're away. One of the great habits I picked up from shooting almost exclusively with film for about 2 or 3 years was that the delayed gratification I had to have before I was able to get my film home, process it, scan and edit those images. And I've carried that habit across to shooting now more with digital again. While I do take a laptop with me while I'm away, what I tend to do is use that purely to make sure my images are backed up off of my SD cards at the end of the day and onto a separate hard drive. And I really limit myself in going into Lightroom and starting to edit those images. Because when I give myself a little distance between the time a photo is taken and then I then go back and look at it, I'm way more objective, and I tend not to be as emotionally attached to an image maybe I thought was great at the time that I pressed the shutter. Folks, I really want to thank you today for sticking with me to the end of this video. I hope you found these 10 tips on travel photography helpful and that you'll implement them into your workflow when you're out in the field. For me, photography is such a huge part of my life, and I'm so happy that I'm able to share these stories and tips with you. Again, I hope you get something out of it. For those of you new here, please don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you're a return visitor, thank you so much for the support. We are well on our way to 500 subscribers, and your support and engagement matters to me more than anything. I really can't tell you how happy I am to have gotten this far on YouTube. So again, thanks for everybody. I really hope that you got something out of this, and I'll see you guys again soon. Thanks so much.